we'll get started. Thank everyone so much for attending this. It's a great opportunity to hear what's going on in the courthouse. We don't get down to the courthouse as much as we once did. And so getting an idea of the practices and procedures that are in place now are very important. Before we get started with that, I do need to take care of a little housekeeping. And, you know, obviously since the pandemic has started, it's changed how we are able to do continuing education. And the Supreme Court and Commission on CLE has agreed to some modifications that allowed us to do this virtually. And one of the requirements in order to do that is that there be a portion of interactivity, if you will. So at a point in this meeting, when we're transitioning between speakers, there will be a poll that pops up. If you could please click yes that you are participating and submit that so that we can show to the commission that you were interactive in this program, I would greatly appreciate it. When this program concludes, there will be an email sent to each of the attendees with the course approval code, so that because we're so close to the deadline for submitting your CLE requirements, please add that to your report before you submit it, and then the commission will be able to confirm that you are listed on our attendance roster. I can't thank them enough. Julie, our recently reelected clerk of court, and all of her staff, some of who I had the opportunity to work with when I was a law clerk many, many years ago. I thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you sharing with us kind of what's going on in the courthouse and how that might facilitate how our practices may work with regards to filings or hearings and trials and things like that. So thank you very much for your time today. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to whoever's going to begin our program. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Everyone, thank you. I'm Julie Armstrong, your clerk of court, and I am proud to serve you. Thank you again for all your support. The bar has been instrumental in Charleston County Courthouse, leading the way for technology and information. So again, we thank you for the opportunity, and we thank you for the time you took today to spend with us, and I hope you will find it productive. I also want to thank David and Christy Allen and the executive committee for these opportunities and all their tremendous support during the pandemic. This past year has rocked everyone's world, I know, and it has certainly blurred the boundaries for all of us. And particularly in the courts, we've spent the last year trying to re-engineer and reimagine the processes, and you have been very patient with us. So I hope we can learn as much from you today as knowledge that we impart on you. But of course, as clerk, I'm not a one-woman show, and it happens with my terrific staff. So today I have with me my management team, and they are the shakers and movers here at the court. So I want to make sure to introduce them, and they will be presenting to y'all, and we'll answer questions as a panel. So first I have Robert Duncan, who's my operations manager for Circuit Court, Civil and Criminal Court. Next, I have Dorothy Shepard, who manages my family court and does a tremendous job. Then I have Eddie Hazelton, my chief deputy. He is the longest serving employee with the clerk's office on the management team committee. He worked under the prior administration 28 years ago, so a lot of knowledge there. And certainly not last or least is Jessica Mills, our operations manager for every aspect of the court. She's our project officer, and she keeps us all straight. So thank you with that. And I'm going to kick it over to family court. I think Eddie Hazelton and Dorothy Shepard are going to make you a great presentation. So thank you.
I want to reiterate what Ms. Armstrong just said. We appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak with everybody today. Don't want to bore you too much by going back to last March, but that's where I think we should start. And I say that because I just received a call like 20 minutes ago from somebody asking me if they could come and file documents because they wanted to know if we were open. Some people, as Mr. Wolf said, mentioned before, they might not get to come to the courthouse as often as what you used to. Back in March, when, as Ms. Armstrong said just a few minutes ago, COVID rocked everybody's world here, and it's no different for us in the clerk's office. When we received that order from Chief Justice back on March 16th to talk about taking away a lot of our in-person hearings, from that point forward, we went through several iterations, as you're well aware, of the different orders throughout the year. When we were going through that, we also went with several different iterations about how we were filing documents and how people were allowed to come to the complex. We went from drop boxes where people could put their documents that they wanted to file there. We went from quarantining documents. We went from being in the lobby when people came in the door, waiting on them as soon as they came through the door, to limit their exposure, having to come in involved with everyone else. And from that to coming back to our windows, just like normal, like we are right now. We went through all these different things with the mindset of trying to serve the public the best that we could, but also trying to maintain safety. The same thing as the different iterations of the orders from Chief Justice. That's what we did as well. And it was a learning process. From the lock boxes to the quarantining of documents, we went through those different things, and I think that it's prepared us to where we are still today. With each one of those orders, the mindset that we had was the same thing. We wanted to be able to do what we could, but we wanted to be able to do it safely as well. From the first order that started last March 16th to the order that came out affecting court January 11th of this year. Each time that we received an order, we would meet with our chief administrative judges with common pleas, general sessions, and family court that we're going to be speaking about specifically first. But we would meet with them knowing what we were told that we were to schedule, but we wanted to know how it was that they wanted us to go about scheduling. We wanted to give them some ideas, but we also wanted to be able to plan safely. From whenever we could do in-person hearings of emergencies, before Zoom was a thing, we were, with Ms. Armstrong's leadership, we were in contact with the jail saying, can we do guilty pleas via remote so that we didn't have to transport any of the litigants? And then we started saying, well, what can we do in family court? We did the same type of technology. We did that with our bench warrants. We did that with our juvenile hearings. And then with Zoom, and then later with WebEx, we just continued to build on what we could do. So from the point where we went with emergency hearings only and in-person hearings were limited, then we started growing, obviously, with the order whenever the Chief Justice said that we could start having some in-person hearings. And then we went and we, again, met with our chief administrative judges. And one of the things that Judge Martin thought was working well was the way that we were able to do virtual hearings. So at that particular time, we had our four resident judges in family court, and we were doing 2 in-person dockets, and we were doing 2 virtual dockets, even whenever we could expand the in-person hearings. So in every instance, we would say with Judge Martin and with our resident judges, what can we do? How do you want us to schedule? What can we do in person? What can we do virtual to be able to get the opportunity for our litigants to get as many hearings as possible? One of the questions that we had, and we still have, is how do you go back whenever something was filed? If you had something filed before March 16th of last year, and then with each subsequent order, what do you do? So each time that we have an order that affects the way that we can schedule, we go back to that earliest filing, the earliest hearing that had not been heard. And we go to that and we see which one follows, which one falls into what the Chief Justice has allowed us to do and what the Chief Administrative Judge is telling us that we can schedule. Judge Martin, after the latest order from the Chief Justice in January, he also provided to the bar a memo saying, this is what we're going to do going forward during the latest memo. So that's our mindset, is we want to make sure that we're going through the orders of the hearing request from the latest going forward to the most recent. We want to make sure that we're in compliance with the Chief Justice order. And we're also in compliance with the way that Judge Martin or our Chief Administrative Judge on the Circuit Court side, how they want us to be able to go forward. So with that in mind, what we also talk with them is, what's the biggest challenge that we can do as far as making sure that we have as many hearings that we can schedule as possible, or that we can, if they're saying that we can do these things in person, we ask that question, well, what more can we do scheduled virtually? And even though we get that direction in that first meeting, one of the things that we're not afraid to do is to ask questions to see if we can do even more, as long as we can do it safely. So we continually ask those questions. We have continued, even though the latest order says that we are to do emergency hearings in person, we are still doing our bench warrants. We're still doing our juvenile hearings. Those emergency cases, we're still doing those virtually, remote, with a connection to the jail. So those things are still going forward. We're doing in-person hearings that Judge Martin has deemed as emergencies. In his memo, he also outlined that if it is a final that might not fall under as an emergency, that you can file a motion, and that he will hear that motion virtually in the virtual courtroom to be able to see if that hearing can go forward, either in the virtual courtroom or if it can be in person. So he does allow for that, even though that's outside of what he believes that the Chief Justice order says. So we're continuing to do in-person hearings. We're continuing to do virtual hearings. There's the mechanism to be able to schedule and request to be able to go forward with those different types of hearings. And we're also trying to do those things as much as possible, doing those things safely. And I hope I didn't bore you with that introduction to what but it's when, as Julie has said, we've been open every day. And sometimes because we've been open every day, we just seem to think that everybody realizes that we're open every day. And it takes you back whenever, like I said, I got a call 20 minutes before this meeting saying, hey, can I come and file while y'all open? And we need to take these opportunities to remind everybody that we are here. So with that in mind, Dorothy is going to tell you a little bit about what's going on right now.
Yes, family court, we are fully staffed during normal business hours in our case management section to accept filings. We're also in our support section answering questions about payment of support and receipt of support. Normally, we accept the documents by mail, in person, and by bullet. We are now accepting documents by email. And our email address for that is fcfilings@charlestoncounty.org. And it is on the Clerk of Court's website, yes. We ask that the documents that's sent in by email, that they're sent no sooner than 24 hours before a hearing to allow us to prepare for court.
Business hours.
Business hours, yes.
24 business hours.
Before business hours, 24-hour business hours. We also ask that documents be submitted, only documents be submitted that does not require a filing fee. Our child support clerks are also there to answer any questions that the public have, attorneys have about support. And during this time, we're also working on a new family court system, and Eddie is going to give you more information about that.
So while all of this is going on, the state has been working on a family court case management system. We have been testing it. We have been being trained on it, and we're going to go live with it on Tuesday of next week. One of the things that we don't believe it's going to be that much of an impact as far as what you're going to see, but there will be a couple of things, and I wanted to highlight what those are for you. So Friday at 1 o'clock, we're going to be turning off our present case management system, but we will still be here to file your documents. If you come in, we're going to stamp them. You're going to get them taken care of so you can do whatever you need to be able to do. And then on Tuesday, when we come back to work and we're on the new family court case management system, then we will enter it. And whenever, what you will also see on the weekend, we're going to be switching over our Court Plus, our link for that, to the new family court case management system. So it will be down for maintenance for maybe an hour. When what that means is, if that one of the questions that's going to be out there is, will we lose Court Plus functionality? And you won't. That was one of the things that whenever Julie agreed to go on the case management system, she said that we have to maintain the level of service that we have from Court Plus, and she made sure that that was going to happen, and it is happening. So we won't lose any of that. Whenever you do a case search off of our website, it's going to be the link to the Court Plus case search. So you'll be familiar with that. The only other aspect that we know of so far, training just finished yesterday, that we think that you'll be able to see a little bit of difference is the way that our dockets are presented online. It's more of an Excel spreadsheet type of view right now. Once we go live with it after a month or so, we're going to start tweaking it a little bit. As you can imagine, when we went on to the case management system and circuit court a number of years ago, when we first went online, then we started building on top of that and making some changes visually. And I'm sure that's the way we're going to do that as well. So the Excel spreadsheet look will be there for a few months, and then we'll see what we can do to make it what you're used to seeing. One of the things that we're also doing back with presently, your divorce packets that the Chief Justice provided for, those divorce packets that don't require a hearing, we are accepting those, and I believe that was that was out there on the website, the Judicial Department website, excuse me. So that's something that you can continue to do, and that we will still be accepting. And just to go back and reiterate, what we're doing right now is we're working underneath the present order from January 11th. So even if you had a hearing request of one of those that can be done virtually, and you did not make a virtual request at the time, we're going through all of those hearing requests. And when we're going through them, we're contacting you through email from the oldest forward, asking you if you want to try to have it as a virtual hearing. So you are going to be getting those emails from us, going from the oldest forward. So it takes us a little while. We go through each one of the hearing requests that we're wanting to go forward with, and we're going to contact you to see if we can help you with that. So that's where we are in family court right now.
Yeah, so there's some questions there.
Okay, and there were a couple questions, and you may have answered these, but since I'm not a family court practitioner, I'm not 100% sure. So if you'll bear with me, I'll ask these questions for you. Do you have any insight as to what extent are COVID practices staying with us? For instance, if we're going to continue having final hearing packets by consent filed rather than in-person hearings, are we going to continue to have Zoom hearings or status calls with the court post-COVID lockdowns or person meeting restrictions? And then there are two other questions. Do you want me to ask those now or let you answer those two?
As far as the virtual hearings moving forward, we certainly hope so. We think that this is one of those things that we're learning as we go along. And whenever when the Chief Justice stopped in-person hearings except for emergencies, and then we progressed out and he allowed for in-person hearings with the caveats of we had to wait 20 minutes between hearings and we had to wipe down and those types of things. When we met with our Chief Administrative Judge, Judge Martin, he was saying, we want to continue to do some of these virtual hearings because we can schedule a lot more of those and not have to worry about the 20 minutes in between. That's what we hope. We not only on family court, on circuit court as well. We hope the things that we've learned that are working well and better than what we had before, we're hoping that we're going to continue to be able to do those. And I think we have a lot of buy-in from our judges that want to continue to do those things as well. And I forgot what the question was.
Well, but David, that goes to the comfort level of the litigants and the lawyers. We want to keep some of these practices, but we also realize that we've got to have in person on some things. There's just no getting around it. So, but as much as these good techniques that we can keep with the bar support, that's what we want to do.
Right. Great. And so the next question is, how do the clerks of court coordinate with the Supreme Court of South Carolina, if at all, regarding coordinating COVID-specific procedures?
Underhand.
Well, I would like to say that we were able to coordinate, but as you know, the edicts come down from Columbia and we receive them actually when you receive them. We actually get the order the same time you do. So no, we are not at the table. This is all directed from Columbia. I'm sure that the powers that be Columbia think they have enough knowledge up there to make these decisions. So I hope that answers the questions. No, we're not at the table. We're getting it when you get it, but that has not precluded your Charleston clerk's office from reaching out to the leadership in Columbia and to the legislators as well to give our opinion on things when we see things that could change to help. And we'd love to hear from the lawyers when they hear or see things that they want us to go to bat for. We're glad to do that. That's what we're here for.
One of the things that we did, the clerk's offices were able to coordinate with them beforehand, was when we reopened courtrooms for in-person hearings, we were to submit a safety plan. What we would have in place, the PPE, if we had enough PPE to be able to keep everybody safe, you know, those types of things. So that really was the only thing I could think of that we had a little bit of foreknowledge to plan. But that's sort of the joke that we have, is maybe we'll get an order at night to be able to come in the next day to work on.
All right, and then the final question we have is, when is Charleston County Family Court transitioning to statewide e-filing?
Your mouth to God's ear. We would love that. We've been asking for it. We volunteered, as we always do, to be the pilot program for it. There's been ongoing discussion with the state. DSS even offered to help build it because they are building the case management system for the state for us. That is going to, again, an edict that's coming from Columbia. I had conversations with the Chief Justice last week about it and offered our services again in Charleston. He is keenly aware that e-filing is greatly needed in all of the courts. And I think family court is going to be put on the front burner, on the front line to move that along. Because if we had had e-filing in many of these courts during the pandemic, it would have solved a lot of issues. But I realize from Columbia, it's funding for them to roll this out in 46 counties. But we have volunteered to be on the front line to help develop one here in Charleston. And if I could build you one, I would. If I had the permission to do it, I would.
Those are all the current questions. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Well, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Robert Duncan to address the circuit, which is the civil and criminal court updates.
Okay, in common pleas for motions specifically, we are scheduling 2 motion terms a month. Since April of last year, we've had about 3,500 motions filed. And during that time, we've disposed of about 4,200 motions. So currently we have 1,700 motions filed. It's taken maybe 6 to 8 weeks to get your motion heard. We are moving those along. Depending on the judge, motions may be argued by brief or by a virtual conference, either video or teleconference. The judge's instructions will be in the notice, so please pay attention to the notice for that. Non-jury trials, we're also doing 2 terms a month. There's no formal docket meetings. The docket clerks are reaching out to the parties to determine case readiness. And once we determine the case is ready, then the judge assigned will do the scheduling of the hearing. If you have exhibits that you wish to submit for a non-jury trial or a motion hearing, those should be scanned and emailed to the presiding judge, and the originals could be mailed or dropped off at the clerk's office. So moving on to common pleas filings. So these are e-filing related. bits of information that my people asked me to pass along. When filing exhibits, an exhibit has to be attached or accompanied with something else. So for example, a pleading that is e-signed and the exhibit is attached. It can't be filed by itself. Let's see. Next page. Notice of removals. When filing removals, please be very careful. There are 3 different e-filing codes to choose from. There's a code for the notice of removal. There's a code for the notice of filing of removal, and there's an acknowledgement of removal. We didn't have any say on the codes that are in e-filing, but we are stuck with them. When entering party names, leave out all titles and any punctuation marks. That is very important, and only capitalize the first letter of each word. On the judicial website, sccourts.org/e-filing, there is a document out there called Standards for Lawyers on Data Entry, and that has all of the detail on that. And moving on to general sessions docketing, unless there are any common pleas related questions. No, okay. Roll calls are still suspended until further notice from the chief judge. We have sent notices to pro se defendants who still do not have an attorney, reminding them that they don't have a lawyer to try and encourage them to hire an attorney, just to make sure they don't kind of fall through the cracks. And we're scheduling 2 GS non-jury terms each month. Basically, we're doing a lot of recommended or negotiated time served pleas. And we're doing also bond hearings and probation and revocation hearings. And we've been moving along with that. We've been doing that, all of these really since April. We've been pretty steady with that. General session. So one thing about the Track A status conferences, you probably have received a notice on that. And in order to be excused, or if you would like to be excused from that, just email us an updated case status, and that can be emailed to James or Jennifer. And so that's jmalone@charlestoncounty.org or jmason@charlestoncounty.org. So we just need to know about your case is what the goal is. And I think we've done these in the past, and it did create some movement on cases. Moving on to GS filings, there is an optional filing method, which is by the email address, which is gsfilings@charlestoncounty.org. The emails should come from the primary email address of the attorney that is in AIS. And that's just a way that we can verify who it came from. And make sure you include your contact information within the body of the email. In the subject, if you can put the description, maybe the case number about it. Okay, jury trials is the last thing on my list.
Yeah.
Okay, so jury trials, we're not. Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but we now have 3 questions if I could run by you before we move on. So the first one is, are there any steps being taken to make online circuit court proceedings public? So I'm guessing, like, if a third party wants to observe what's happening on a particular motion or hearing.
So right now, anybody who wants to attend any hearing across the state, they just would get the WebEx link from the judge.
And
Okay,
they've,
so
as far as I know, they've been providing it to everyone that's requested it.
Right.
You just have to request of that judge.
Okay, so they just contact the judge's office and they should be provided with the WebEx link?
Yeah, and I think that was per the justice.
That's per the Chief Justice's order, because I think in some places in the state that was not going on. So he addressed that immediately because he understands it's an open court system.
Right. Okay, the next question is, what about filing of video or audio recordings?
Same thing. So if they want the judge to have it prior to the hearing, just get it to us as soon as possible. Let us know. We can get it to the judge. And if there's going to be something difficult about watching it, if it's a digital file that's going to need a special codex to play, we would need that information. But if it's a DVD audio tape, we can help the judge with that.
Okay. And then the final question is, can you address the procedure for providing exhibits to the court in support of dispositive motions that are video or audio recordings?
Same.
So
same
you
answer.
may have just answered that.
Yeah, just send those to us with enough time to get it to the judge if the judge is expected to listen to it prior.
Okay, that's all the current questions. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. So the last thing is jury trials. On my list, obviously, we have not done any jury trials. We did schedule a jury trial, and then like the Friday before, I think some of the 3 of the participants came down with COVID, so that was continued, and then we were back in lockdown. But so we anticipate that when we return to normal, it will be a process where we will probably still have to exercise social distancing. And so what we've done to accommodate that for the jury is we would, instead of summoning one large panel, we would break that up into probably 3 panels and qualify them, as 3 smaller panels. And then that will probably take the better part of a day, is what we anticipate. And then so the next day would be striking the jury. So you're very limited to the length of trial as far as getting it done in a week. Once we have a jury selected in the courtroom, so we have a courtroom large enough to social distance, but not in the jury box. So instead of the jury box, the jury panel, or your trial panel will be sitting in the gallery, and no one else would be in the gallery. Like support staff for the attorneys could sit in the jury box. But so to allow the jury a good view of the witnesses, we have a camera set up focused on the witness box. And then in the courtroom facing the gallery on each side of the room, we have 2 60-inch monitors. And on one set of the monitors, it would be the witness. And on the other set, it would be the input from your laptop. So instead of using the displays that are on the wall, that you've seen before, they're 2 large screens on each side of the room. And we've also added another podium and microphone and annotator, so y'all don't have to share with the other side. And to accommodate the public access, we do have overflow viewing in the jury assembly room. And so anybody wishing to watch the trial would just go to the jury assembly room. Jury deliberation rooms are not large enough for the jury with social distancing, so we would turn a courtroom into a deliberation room. Obviously, things will just, these things will just slow down the process. Instead of doing maybe 3 trial judges a week, we would literally just do 1. That's all we have.
And again, that's going to depend on what the guidelines are for social interaction when we open back up to juries, and the guidance from Columbia.
Oh, we did have another one.
And they settled a bunch of cases.
Oh, that's true. We did also that. So the one that was continued because of COVID, the participants having COVID, that one was continued. We did have a civil week as well scheduled, and all of the cases that were subject that week settled. So it did create a lot of movement. And that's, everyone knows that if you have a scheduled court, the cases, tend to settle. A lot of times.
Conversations occur.
Right, exactly.
But keep in mind, you can request bench trials any day now. You can request that from our judges, and they're anxious to help you with that. But jury trials are going to start back slow, very slow pace when we get back in. And again, and there's been some discussion. I've been approached about, can we go to a 6-person jury for civil? Is there an agreement with that? We'll work with that, whatever number the powers that be designate for our court. Of course, that does help if we reduce the numbers, because then we can, use jury boxes and jury rooms with distancing, but with the current numbers that we have required to seat a jury, that's going to be a bit of a challenge with the design of our building.
And there's a question along those lines. In trying to advise clients as to the new time frame for jury trials, is there a plan in place to cure the backlog when we have the green light to try cases again? Is there an estimate as to the size of the backlog? Is there any way to estimate the time it now takes from filing to jury trial?
No, because we don't have a crystal ball. And as you know, and we've seen when we did set the jury trials, a lot of the cases that said we're solid, we are not going to settle, we're going to have a jury, and then they end up settling nicely. So no, I'd be foolish to try to even answer that with numbers. We just don't know what to anticipate. Yeah, and again, that's as Eddie's saying now that we don't know how many terms of court administration is going to give us. Because again, we're going to, if we're converting, we're active in one courtroom and we're going to convert another courtroom for the jury deliberation room, that's eating up our assets quickly. So no, I could not answer that.
It's going to be difficult as well, even if we come out of COVID and we can roll back normal and we've got the no social distancing, all of those things, it still comes down to what are the terms of court we're going to be given, because we've got, as we're talking here today, we have the family court backlog that's trying to be caught up. We've got the circuit court backlog. So if they give us 6 terms of court in circuit court and they can't give us 6 court because they all are on the state, you have the court reporter situation of how many actual bodies can they give us to be able to affect the backlog.
So court administration yesterday told me that due to COVID, several court reporters have retired. So the shortage that we had is now even worse. They were actually here looking at adding the digital court recording system to some additional courtrooms. And that would help us out, because we wouldn't be in need of a court reporter, have a judge and a court reporter. That has happened before. And so we're trying to get more courtrooms with that installed.
But I'd love to hear from our lawyers to hear what suggestions they have. No pride and ownership here. We'd love to hear ideas.
If anybody has thoughts, they can either place it into the chat window, maybe is the best way to do it.
And I know we've looked, and I've talked to our counterparts across the state. I know Washington State, Robert and I were talking about, they're doing online juries, which is, an interesting concept for civil court.
Strange.
I don't know that we'll see that in South Carolina anytime soon, but I know it's going on in other places.
Mm-hmm.
So David, do we have some questions we might?
Yeah, I was looking. Okay. So it sounds like a logistical nightmare. Has court administration considered empowering special referees to assist with the backlog?
We have not heard that, but I will send that up the flagpole. When we conclude this, I will be glad to reach out to court administration and suggest that. So that's a great idea. Thank you for that.
And then there was a comment made when we were discussing access to particular hearings. Apparently on the South Carolina court's website, the links to each of the judges' WebEx virtual courtrooms are there. So if anybody has a hearing that they want to access, apparently you can do that by locating the particular judge assigned to the matter and then using their link.
Yeah, and thanks to Rhett for putting that out there. And that's a great initiative of our Chief Justice that they've offered that. I think that's been a real game changer. It's been a wonderful thing.
Yes. Haven't gotten any comments in the chat to share.
Okay.
So what have we learned through COVID that is working for the bar that you would like to see us keep? We'd love to know that.
You know, I'll take a moment and share. I had the opportunity to try a virtual trial. It was at the magistrate court level, but you know, the logistics of it are probably the same regardless of the level of the matter. And it took us a little while to sort out how you share exhibits and deal with that. And of course, when the microphones will cut in and out on you, depending on who's speaking. But I found that to be a great way to work out a case with, you know, a bench trial matter and get it resolved so that my clients could move on with their lives. And I thought it was a good use of the time when we couldn't have a jury take care of it.
Okay. And I saw a chat pop up about briefs, which is great, from Robin. That would help tremendously, and we've made that known to the powers that be. And our judges actually would like to see that as well. So I think that will get some legs. And I know in my conversations with the Chief Justice, and I don't know his list, but he's putting together a list of what he wants to see stay after this COVID is passed that we can use effectively in the courts. And so that's the feedback we need from the lawyers. We need to hear from you and your staff what works, what doesn't, so we can share that and be the voice, along with the Charleston Bar and the South Carolina Bar.
And sorry to interrupt, just so that folks know, that poll is now live for purposes of participation. If everybody will go ahead and click on that.
Yes.
Okay, and then we have another question. While I look forward to live hearings, I suggest keeping the option to have matters heard on briefs, but only as an option. I guess that's more of a statement than a question.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's what we need to hear. And we concur with you. So thank you. We will, that's on the list, and we'll share with them the positive comments we get on that. COVID's been a challenge for everybody, but we've seen some positive court reactions come out of it. And I think that's one of them, that we don't have to be in person so much, but the backlog is going to be our biggest challenge.
We have a question. I've participated in several virtual roster meetings in the last year. Will that continue in the future and be implemented statewide? To your knowledge, sure saves a lot of travel time and parking fees.
Right. Robert.
So, and I assume that's civil related. Comment, please.
He doesn't specify, but I suspect so.
Okay. So we have had the opportunity to call into to do the chat room for the docket meetings, and we will continue to do that. I don't know that we would have a WebEx meeting, but things like that definitely we will continue to do.
And statewide, we couldn't answer. But that would be great to do it statewide. It's not that difficult. It'd be an easy flip of the switch to make that happen statewide.
Are there any other questions or concerns that we can answer for you? Seems like a tough crowd during lunchtime today.
Yeah. Don't rush all at once.
One of the things we get asked, if you do come to the courthouse, what is going to be expected of you? As any county building, it's an ordinance that you have to have a face covering, and your temperature will be checked when you come in. So we'd love to see you. I mean, we want you to be able to have convenience with the virtual, but if you do come, that's one of the things that you would need.
It'd be nice to get it.
Okay, so we got a comment. It would be nice to get an automatic briefing schedule when a motion is filed with a deadline to request a hearing so that we do not have to wait and could prepare at the time of filing. And then there's a question, if you currently have an in-person final hearing scheduled in family court, which was scheduled prior to January 11th, 2020 Supreme Court order suspending in-person hearings, how much advance notice do you expect to be able to provide to the parties regarding whether the trial will go forward or not?
The latest order said that the Chief Justice would give us at least 2 weeks to start scheduling once he allows more in-person hearings. As soon as we get that order, we will start going through and going from that oldest case, oldest request, I should say, forward, and we will start right away at giving as much notice as possible.
Great, thank you. So the next question is, can you explain the changes regarding the newer DSS coordination of child support and how it affects payment or clerk supervised child support payments?
The way payments are made, payments are now made through the SDU. We only accept payments in family court for purge payments. And we are here to help answer questions about support accounts, but we no longer accept regular support payments at the clerk's office.
So whenever a payment is made through the SDU, they look at a federal allocation because it's a federally certified system. So they look at what they're not just looking at Charleston cases that we would have, but they would be looking at whatever cases are if they owe in other jurisdictions. The difference is that the only payment that we can take here, that purge payment that Dorothy talked about, whenever there's a purge payment to get somebody out of jail or keep them from jail, that goes directly to our case instead of going from the other ones.
And as Eddie pointed out and said, it is a federally mandated system, so we have to follow their guidelines. Those aren't guidelines that we established on our own or through the state. It was federally mandated.
I saw something, a request asking if family court contested cases can be virtual. Those are the ones that you would need to make a request to Judge Martin or to one of our other judges, and then they would be able to rule whether or not it can go forward virtually. That he addressed that in his memo about the steps that need to be taken with that, and that's one of the exigent circumstances that he said that they would consider. But definitely file a motion. We get those motions all the time asking for those hearings to go virtual.
You talk about cross-examination exhibits. That's the big challenge.
Yeah, he said one of the challenges was cross-examination of witnesses and exhibits, that type of thing. Those were a couple of his concerns that we know of.
All right, and then there was another comment that virtual summary dockets for DSS matters have given clients who may be indigent more access to justice. Some of the clients do not have vehicles or money for bus fares, and they'd like to see that remain as an option.
Okay.
That's on the list now, but we'll reiterate that again. So thank you, because that is an important point. We're not easy access here. For people that don't have transportation, it's quite a challenge.
Right. All right, any other questions? And for a few folks who haven't completed the poll, please do so that you'll be able to get credit for your attendance at this continuing education program.
And David, I would encourage everyone, if they think of something, reach out to me, call me, email me, come see me, whatever, but we'd love to hear from you. If you think of things, it helps us to get feedback from you. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, not sure if this is in your field house, but being able to have the option for mediation by video conference is good too. I mean, I
Okay.
think that mediations are going forward via Zoom and the other virtual platforms. So I think that's already happening and
But
has,
you'd like to see that stay.
sorry.
Are you saying you'd like to see that stay?
Yeah, that's the comment. And, you know, I participated in a virtual mediation probably in August or so. And it was a great way to save on travel costs, get everybody that is involved in the decision-making process in the rooms, so to speak, and be able to get a case resolved. So it is a good way to do that if folks have that opportunity.
Okay, and I see Robin's comment to keep it as an option.
Yes.
Okay, great. Good point.
All right. This is a rare opportunity to be able to ask questions and get an immediate response in the clerk's office. Not that they are unwilling to do this on other occasions, but
Yeah.
they're right here. So please take advantage of it.
Doesn't have to all be positive. We got to hear the negative too. So if they're negative things, let us know, because we can't fix what we don't know is not working. But again, I encourage everyone to reach out to us.
So there's a question for folks who try matters throughout the state. It would be great when live hearings resume to have the ability to participate remotely via Zoom. I imagine that's something that needs to be taken up in Columbia.
At a higher level, but I'll add it with the list of comments and share it. I'll be glad to do that.
But that's one of those things that we're hoping that, you know, some of the virtual things that we're seeing that we can continue with those things to help.
What was the?
The opportunity to do contested for the military.
Okay,
Live
right.
video, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully, as you've said, you know, being exposed to this technology and having the opportunity to see how it could improve the experience, you know, for all of the participants, the judges, the attorneys, and the litigants. I mean, hopefully this will, I know the clerk's office, I remember both when I was a law clerk and in civil matters, the rocket docket and the messenger opportunity. So you did not have to travel down to the courthouse for a roster meeting. All of those are great uses of technology that we are actually spoiled because the clerk's office has had it for such a long time. But hopefully some of this technology transfers and we're able to use it to add additional conveniences for all of the parties. And, you know, this is a good way to kind of explore what is helpful and what needs to be done in person.
Exactly. I think someone had a question about the jury time to summons. Jessica, I'll throw that to you.
Normally in cases, we summons 30 days prior to. Back in October, I believe, when we were trying to do the civil and criminal trial, we did extend that out a little further because there was also a COVID questionnaire that went with the summons as well. One of the other things that we did was we already had the online summons for people to do, but we added the questionnaire as well to do that. So with that being said, I'm sure that once we start, we will push that out a little further than the 30 days, probably closer to 45 days, just to ensure that people are getting the summons, that we get the COVID questionnaire back in time. And also, so we know if there are even going to be enough people coming to, so we can pull, you know, for whether it's one trial, two trials, whatever we have.
But right now, that's all guided by the statute. That's why we're held to the month is the earliest notice. But I know the chief is very amenable to that being adjusted. Because keep in mind, the way we summons jurors is snail mail. We do it the old-fashioned way.
I think you're muted, Dave.
Thank you. Yes. Any other questions that we can try and get answered for you here? I certainly appreciate everyone's time and don't want to waste it if we don't have any other questions or information that can be passed along.
I think there was a question about a lag in the notifications. Was that, they're popping up and then they're going away so quick, I can't.
Yeah. Okay, it looks like the next question after the lead time question is, would like to keep after COVID electronic signatures accepted and to affidavits by certification. And then one negative is there's a verifiable lag time when we get the emailed notice that a motion or response of pleading has been electronically filed and when we can actually get access to the document.
So you have to address that. 'Cause that's-
So, and when you say access to the document in the e-filing system or on the clerk's website? Because we can't do anything with the e-filing system, but once it hits the data, we have to verify what you've entered and we process that. And the processing time is usually within a day or so on most documents. And the other really bad thing about the e-filing system is that we cannot see what y'all see, which is kind of frustrating when we get questions. You know, we have no frame of reference really.
Yeah, it doesn't specify whether it's within the e-filing system or yours. I have recently had a situation where a case I'm involved in, they filed an answer and I went to look for it and then later found out it had been rescinded. So I think maybe some of that lag time switching from the e-filing to your court records page.
Well, on the e-filing system, that's all controlled from Columbia and that's mirror image for 46 counties. So that we can't control, but if there's something on our end that we can tweak. Okay, both systems. Okay, that helps. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, that would be like the federal court system where you get notice and included in the notice is the link to the document.
Right.
We do send something similar from Court Plus, you know, those notifications do have the link back to it, but if it exists in the e-filing system, you know, it should be in our system, you know, very shortly thereafter, and I'll look at that and maybe reach out to Columbia to see if how that is processed.
Robin, thank you for that comment on that. We will look into that. We are aware of that. Do we have a question on Judge Martin's docket that I see?
Yeah.
Part of it. Or order?
Couldn't read the whole thing.
Let me apologize to everyone. We can't see all of your questions. We're just seeing a few words of it and then it goes away. So we're waiting for our
Well,
host to translate.
I can try and ask the question for you. Is Judge Martin's order regarding the submission of documents for family court temporary hearings 24 hours, counting business days, not weekends? Is that being
It's business
enforced?
Hours.
It's business hours. So if you have a hearing on Monday morning, we would need that on Friday because we wouldn't have the opportunity to be able to get it to them if it was Monday morning, if you filed it on say Sunday or whatever.
And what initiated that practice was we had a few people that were coming in 5 or 10 minutes before their virtual hearing and sending all the documents. And to be honest, I mean, reality tells you it's not going to get to the judge that quick because we do have a process where we have to check it in and send it on. So that was what has precipitated that directive. So the judges would have time to consume your documents and give them the thoughtful consideration that they need.
All right, any other questions?
So is it
There's another one.
So 24 hours before the hearing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So if the hearing is Monday morning at 9:30, we would need it the Friday before.
At 9:30.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, it seems like we have gotten to the point where most of the questions that folks want to ask have been asked. So before we wrap up, I just wanted to take a moment to thank Julie and her staff for being such great partners to the Charleston County Bar Association, which has allowed for substantial dissemination of information during the pandemic. Initially they were gracious and got involved with us back in April. We had some information sessions about the various courts on WebEx. They've frequently been in communication with us about new developments so that we can get as much information out to our members as possible. And, obviously with this program today, they continue to do that. And I'm so very thankful for everything that they've done. They've been very accommodating and transparent throughout all of this. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you. I want to give a shout out to you for your leadership during this administration. I don't think any other bar president has ever had, such a life-altering experience under their tenure. So my hat's off to you, because you are right. You have kept in constant contact with not only me, but the entire court system. You have served your bar well, and I hope that everyone appreciates the leadership that you gave us, and as well as the executive committee, because these were certainly trying and uncharted times for all of us, and the entire bar has been so patient with us. So we thank you for allowing us to learn side by side with you on this journey. I don't say adventure, journey.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure working with you on that. So thank you for saying that. And then to our attendees, I want to thank them for their attendance, and I hope they got out of this as much as I have. It's great to see what's going on in the courthouse, even though we can't be there as often as we once had been. Hopefully that'll change in the near future, and we can get a better sense of what's going on like we used to by showing up, saying hello, and talking about what's going on. For those folks, just a quick reminder, we have our annual meeting a week from today. Unfortunately, it is going to be the first ever Zoom. I hope it will be the last Zoom annual meeting. It starts at 5 o'clock. You can get the registration link off of, there was a standalone email on Monday, and then our eBlast Tuesday talk also had it. I hope that you will join us and come. Unfortunately, we will not have the reception that we always have that's very attractive to folks afterwards, but we look forward to having social events where we can see each other in person in the near future. But thank you, and I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you again to Julie and your staff for sharing this information with us today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Everybody be safe and healthy. Thank you.
You too.